I'm Matt Braunger. This might help.
I am not a doctor.
This might help.
I'm not a professional.
Let's have fun. This honestly is a good time.
Honestly, I got no idea what I'm doing. What's going on? Who are you?
I'm Matt Braunger. This might help. The podcast.
Hey, welcome to yet another episode of This Might Help with Matt Braunger, the advice podcast that doesn't know why it gives advice. As always, if you actually need clinical help, this ain't the place. It's for fun. But I bring on all manner of wonderful people to give advice from their perspective, no matter how skewed, which is why I came up with the idea. Anyway, today I have a fantastic guest who is not only a writer, performer, but she's also a provider of space for performers. She has a long-running show you might have heard of, if you know anything about comedy, called Un-Cabaret, and is a dear friend and a great supporter of me, as she's had me on more than a few times. Give it up for Beth Lapides, everyone. How are you, Beth?
Hi, I'm great, Matt. Thanks so much. That's so sweet. I'm so happy to be here.
Great to see you. How you been?
I've been great. I've been great. How have I been?
Well, yeah. I mean, it is. I will say I do have a thing where, like most people, I have those moments late at night where you wake up and go,
Yeah.
oh God, everything's falling apart and
Yeah.
everything's death and nothing is good or whatever, whatever
Yeah.
is in your mind.
Yeah.
But then I go, oh, we are experiencing a collective anxiety now.
Yes, collective. Well, I mean, it's a collective anxiety because it may be. I mean, I long for hope, and I've
Yeah.
worked so hard to have hope. So, I in the despair, then I just go, no, it's because we're shifting and it's good and change is always hard and it's happening and we're fighting the fight to
Right.
evolve into the next thing that has to happen and then you just get into action and action is just this is the gift. I mean,
Mhm.
on one level I'm great. I have this new book and it's so exciting and I'm
Yeah.
thrilled to be getting it out there and it seems to be helping people,
Nice.
yeah, so that's fun, and I get to, I'm doing the rounds, so getting to see everyone, and
Yeah.
and it's great, but it's also crazy. So
It absolutely is crazy, but I love your point about action because
Yeah.
I always think about, okay, what am I putting out there?
yeah,
What is the me that can help that I'm sharing?
yeah.
So-
On the helping thing, when I started looking into how to feel better and be happier, and the very first thing that really struck me as to why it was important, and I always thought happiness was very bougie, it's like
That's a common sentiment.
that is not something for me because I'm an artist and I'll be wearing black and but then you start to see that your own personal, and happiness is maybe the wrong word. I always feel we got off on the wrong foot with the word happiness.
Sure.
But whatever that thing is, peace of mind, which also is sort of a scary phrase.
Oh, it's all labeling and branding. It all
yes.
goes to I forget who had said it. Was it Plato? When you label me and negate me, it's like, oh, God, that's everything. I do. Brendan Small had the greatest line of all time about what we do, where he's like, I'm sick of comedy. There has to be something funnier out there. Like that, like that.
I feel that all the time.
Haven't we all thought? Anytime you say a comedy show, everybody really loves it. They're so sick of the word. And yeah, you're right. Happy has had the worst branding.
It's the
Happiness
worst.
is for dopes. It's for suckers. Yeah. It's like,
yeah.
I'm not happy. I'm cool.
No. But then you read your own personal, whatever the word is besides happiness, actually radiates out 6 degrees to your friends and the friends of your friends and the friends of your friends' friends and the friend. So your own heart wellness. Let's just say something like that. Your own integration, your own alignment, your own way to move easily through the world is probably the most impactful thing you can do ever. That's
Right.
the thing you can do.
Yeah.
And in that thing of do what you can, what can you change the things that, you can change. That's the thing you can change is you.
Mhm.
So then once you get that, it's like, ugh, that's a lot of, that's going to be.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, when I realize oh God, I don't know if Verse said it to me, but it's like you have to make the decision to be happy. That's a bitch. That's a real bitch. When you're like, ugh, I'm going to be, because you want it brought to your doorstep. You want it to be given, and it's like, no, you really have to choose to be and to work toward it.
Day after day. And then when you realize, like, I remember the first time somebody told me, like, well, actually, it's your thoughts that create your emotions, not the other way around. And I just wouldn't believe it. I was like,
so
that
hard.
just seems impossible. Obviously, my emotions are creating my thoughts.
Yeah.
My emotions are so strong and real.
Yeah.
And then you start experimenting with it. I guess experimenting is one of my favorite ways of thinking about it. You just start experimenting with it. You go, well, all right. I mean, I could try changing my thoughts. And then you do, and you're like, oh, God, that really works. Yeah. And then it's so much responsibility because you really can, I do think that one of the hardest things is this balance of I mean, as somebody who lived in my, you get a lot of kudos for being smart, and then you think, oh, I'm so smart, and then you realize you don't know anything, and it's a big come down.
Yeah.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
But then you start to realize, like, you really are, like, everything is waves. I mean, it's kind of woo-woo and science, and you get on the, like, everything is a wave and wavelengths, and comedy, you feel it so much on stage, the waves of comedy, and suddenly it starts to radiate out. And then you start to realize, like, your thoughts are waves. I mean, you actually create, there's thought patterns are wave energy. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, that's real. And then when you realize, like, you almost aren't allowed to think certain things. But on the other hand, you can't, if you do have emotions, because obviously we're all human and you do react emotionally to stuff, you really also have to let yourself have the emotion. It's like sort of learning how to eat a little dessert or something like that.
My God, great analogy. Yeah.
Because you don't want to, like, cut off feeling. I mean, that's a part of being human, is the emotional thing, right? So emotion, partly what moves you, we're just to get back to the, like, taking action, is emotion. And whether, hopefully you're moving out of joy and not fear. But if you're afraid, it doesn't do any good to pretend that you're not afraid. That's where emotional intelligence, I mean, why aren't we teaching emotional intelligence in school? I mean,
I think you could probably trace it back to our puritanical origins.
Right.
I mean, I think that's what always kicks us in the ass. I feel time after time after time. It's like, well, but we can't. It's like, yeah, but why?
Why?
You can't even say why.
Yeah.
It's just in our national DNA. And
like, when you have a feeling, do you know, like, because I'm a lot of times like, I'm having a feeling, I don't know what it is. What is it? Oh my God, there's a lot of feelings. And it really takes me a moment to, like, I'm going to say a moment, but sometimes, like, a while to sit down and be with the feeling and go, like, oh.
Right. Yeah. I it took me years to at least 35 years to, come to the awareness that it's like, if I'm sad, just be sad.
Yeah.
If I'm going through something terrible, admit it, and that would have saved me a lot of grief.
So much. But then it's also like, admit it and without indulging it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That goes with it without.
But first there was when I first started, like, having, like, okay, I'm going to feel all my feelings and I'm going to admit them all, and I'm going to look at my past, and I'm going to really, like, I call it, like, a revolution, the midlife revolution. I don't even like to call it a midlife crisis. And
I like that.
And then I cried for like 3 years. And I really had to be like, I might cry the rest of my life. That might be what it is. I'm just going to have to, like, live with it and, learn to carry tissues and hankies and be good with, like, the, mascara around your eyes look, and just go with it. And then it does, and I like to say that because I like to encourage people to walk through that river. to wade those waters of the full on knowing that there is hope that you will get to the other side of it, because we're just taught to cut it off, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Or ignore it.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
goes
Same.
away.
Yeah. Sure.
Which there's really nothing. There's nothing in life works that way. Nothing. You know. I mean, maybe like an ex-girlfriend or boyfriend,
Yeah.
but like that's kind of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, with emotions, with crises, you name it. It
Yeah.
doesn't. You know.
Yeah.
Like, well, you mentioned your book
Yep.
before, and typically, we'll talk about all kinds of everything, this, that, or the other. But
Yep.
like, your book is so in tune with a lot of why people call in and what this kind of. Because I will say, I don't know if you're familiar, but this is a comedy podcast.
Yeah,
This is
I know,
so fun. It is. I mean, the this might help. It sounds so altruistic, but it really is just like I always liken it to someone, a party's going crazy and someone's not having a good time, and one guy just hands you a pill and is like, I don't know, this might help.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, look, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe,
I get it.
without
Well,
let's just take the drug thing out of it, but it's kind of like it might.
Might is the
Yeah.
key word. But you know what? Haven't you? I mean, I do have you. Once you said that, I have a very strong memory of sitting on a door stoop in college with being, so upset about something and somebody going, I don't know, this might, and it did actually, and
Sure.
sometimes those
Yeah.
things, you do
No, that- I agree.
serendipitously. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just here to,
100%.
we play.
And I do say, I used to, the first incarnation of this podcast was called Advice from a Dipshit, because I didn't like the advice thing, but I liked that it was fun. But I think like it gave the wrong message because, I mean, I've done idiotic things, but I'm not a dipshit.
Yeah.
And, that's why I kind of went with like, this might help. And everybody on the show gives sincere advice. Most everybody I have on is very funny.
Yeah.
So it comes off very entertaining, and I think it keeps people company when they're driving in their cars and stuff, and they're listening to the podcast. But I looked into your book a little bit, but I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna have Beth tell me about it.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, just you go ahead. You introduce it.
Well,
and
it's
can you
called.
just-
Okay, well,
Yeah.
thank you, and I love the title of your podcast. By the way, it's just couldn't be more perfect.
thanks. Thank
It
you.
says everything that you just communicated, all in a title.
I was bouncing titles off friends, and I remember I said that to Dana Gould, and he was like, "That's it. That's the one."
Yeah. Oh, I love when you
Yeah.
know, it's just so perfect.
Thank you.
It's an original audiobook, so it's only audio, and it's called So You Need to Decide. And
Love
there are
that.
chapters about work and love and spirituality and moving and family. It's my story, and it's part memoir, and then many, many, many conversations with very funny people, many of whom I'm sure you've had on this show. Bob Odenkirk, Judy Gould, Jen Kirkman, Greg Behrendt, Mira Marco, Alex Edelman, Baron Vaughn,
Yeah.
Phoebe Bridgers. They were not all comedians. Isaac Mizrahi, like
Right on.
that. Brent Forrester, Guy Branum. I could go on. Scott Frank, who wrote Queen's Gambit.
Yeah.
And these were earnest conversations about people's decisions that they made in their lives. And obviously it very, aligned with you. It's obviously funny because these are funny people, but maybe mine would be called This Hopefully Might Help.
Well,
there's
I mean, it's not-
there's a
it's
little
not
more like
look, there were people doing advice podcasts before mine. There,
Yeah.
it's all been done in the
Yeah.
end and
Yeah.
stuff. And it's really, I always say, not to single this person out, but I remember Tom Cruise was on a show once, this is during the time where everyone was like, wait, is this guy nuts? And I don't think he's nuts, and I'm not judging him as a person. But
Yeah.
I remember he said to Matt Lauer, he's like, Matt, I don't go by the counsel of others. And I was like, what? Like, I remember going,
that
I
has
remember-
to be verbatim from
I remember
Scientology.
yelling, but that's everything, Tom. I remember yelling that at a TV because it's just like, I have been such an insular person. I'm an only child. And I was just like, I'm just going to figure it out. And it's like, that is the most dangerous statement you can say, besides like, I'm just going to give heroin a shot. I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
You know,
I got it. I don't need any help.
I think I'm fine.
Yeah.
So like, just getting someone else going, here's what I went through.
Yeah.
Here's what I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Even if you disagree.
Yeah.
Like, it's all about collaboration kind of thing.
So much. And also finding the doing the work of finding the people you can trust, which is a lot of the work. You know, who are you on the same page with, number one, who understands you, who really has taken the time to know you, because you know, life is not a one size fits all thing. You know, everybody shouldn't do the exact same thing. We're not all, but you know, everybody does need to know themselves, and everybody does need to figure out what principles they believe in, and you know, what their belief system is, so that they have a basis for making decisions. But what was so great about this book is, you know, people really shared story. I've had a lot of people comment that everybody was so vulnerable in the book and really shared, you know, from their heart. It was very conversational, so it wasn't, you know, pat stories. And I remember I did one podcast, and the guy who was running it was like a 25-year-old from India, and he had listened to it, and he was just like, this book was so helpful. And I won't do an Indian accent but he did say vulnerable, and that just oh my God.
Especially from a young person, and
it just sounds more like what it is when you say it as vulnerable.
And speaking in, was he in India? Was he?
Yes.
Well, I mean, probably his second language.
Yes.
That's just so moving.
And he was
that takes so much effort.
Yeah.
Already, and also takes so much effort to be
and to have listened to
be
this
vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's incredible. That was
I've sort of taken that word into my heart in that way. So
of course.
That I think is, you know, one of the things about the book. And I do in the book also do a very deep dive into my own my story of Un-Cabaret and how it impacted. I just looked so much more deeply at it. It's something I've spent, you know, over 25 years of my life doing, and I have just, you know, been such a motor doing, and I kind of knew some things about why, and you know, but I didn't really take, like, how is Un-Cabaret my family? How did I have, how is it, you know, how did I have it instead of a family? How, you know, I really did like a whole, why, you know, how does it intersect with my spirituality? It was serendipitous that it happened on Sundays, but what did it mean for, you know, anyway, I just did a very deep dive, and that was, it wasn't my intention. I actually was going to tell more stories, and then my editor was like, but this, I mean, why don't you tell less stories and go deeper? And I just thought, you know, this might help.
I mean, it really, you can, everybody loves the anecdotes about people they find interesting, that let's say they're famous, or they're very funny, or that kind of stuff. Everybody loves those things, but I do feel like, and this is a good thing, celebrity itself has become incredibly diluted, you know, for most of us, because it's just so readily available because of Instagram and TikTok and things like that, and every celebrity and every commercial. And then you go back, and the old celebrities that we used to worship, we're learning all this stuff about them because it was an older time, and as we put it now, a different time.
Yeah.
They've said certain things or done certain things that you're like, ew. And then you kind of realize what worth fame has. Not much.
Yeah.
Action, impact, emotional exchange, entertainment. Those are the important things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would.
Yes, and as a creative person, you're so like, you know, you're always working to expand your reach and, you know, find your audience and let them find you. And, you know, part of it is like, well, why don't I just make a TikTok account that has like 40 million followers? I could just do these things. I mean, you know, but who wants to, you know, but you don't want to because it's not in your heart, you know, so.
Right. Well, I've been battling that battle for, I realize, 10 years now. And in the past year or two, I've been kind of like, okay, I just need to learn this crap. And so now I'm having people that show me how and stuff. And even I'm learning how to learn it. I think now I'm kind of the best at learning how it kind of changes and things, and how I should use it. The thing I've always been most afraid about is, I don't want to act like something else.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a tool. I mean, I always laugh when Bobcat Goldthwait is like
Yeah.
VHS comedian in a digital
Right.
world, or I forget how he says it.
Yeah. No.
It's
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. In a TikTok world.
yeah, oh yeah, VHS
Yeah.
comedian in a TikTok world, yeah.
hmm Yeah. I mean,
It's so funny. I mean, it's just so great it's great when you see somebody find a way to use whatever medium it is, and things come and go, and you want to use everything as communication, and everything is usable. So it's value neutral.
Yeah. Yeah. That's 100% right. I had a really funny comic on named Billy Wayne Davis, a friend of mine, and he was like, we liken social media too. It's like fire or water. It can kill you, and you can really use it as well.
Yep.
It just depends on how you use it.
I love that. I heard somebody refer to, and maybe this is well known, but I had never heard it, the Instagram as the endless story. And that really, I'll tell you two things about Instagram. I sometimes think that God and the angels and the spirits can only see things digitally, and the whole point of Instagram is that so they can see more pictures. I know that's an insane idea.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm like, it's just us uploading the pictures. And then the idea that it's the endless story, and that we've manufactured these like ways to experience story with these artificial beginning, middles, and ends, when isn't it in a way more authentic to dive into Instagram? I mean, in my feed, it's like politics, comedy, art, it's just, fashion. It's all, it's your own little newspaper. And in a way, it's sort of brilliant, but it also, because it really, it's a test. I mean, it's such a test of your focus, and it's such a test of your intention, and it's such a test of your ability to not be tormented by, and when can you turn it on and off? And it requires so much self-discipline.
I mean, can I tell you what made me realize, like, I was like, why is this so addictive? And
Yeah.
once I learned this thing, I was like, oh, once I learned that TikTok and Instagram both use the exact same motion and eye capture technology that slot machines use, digital slot machines, I was like, okay, that's why we keep pulling the lever.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, and I'm 100%. There's two things I am without a doubt addicted to. One is caffeine. One is my phone. And yes, right, I just had one. And other things could be debatable, but like those are the two. I'm like, yep. Sign me up. I am hooked. But it's that thing where it's like, once I realized that, I was like, okay, I have to every single day go put that over there.
Yeah.
You go over here.
Yeah.
And you work on something, or you read this book.
Do you put it down? Do you put your phone down for dinner?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I once read that even if you aren't using it, but it's face up, the quality of your experience is, it has to be. You put it in another room altogether for dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if like I go out to dinner with my wife, or we eat together, it's like it's in my pocket, it's in her purse.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. We put the phones away. Yeah. I mean, that's just got to be. It's funny. I remember when I was younger, and my mom was very like, the dinner time, and I was like, what's with the dinner? I mean,
right.
But I have to say, in my own defense, I think our dinners at home were a little boring. But I mean,
sure.
Oh, sure, yeah. The 18th hole when you got the birdie, but one thing that always makes me jealous when people, well, around the dinner table when we were talking politics, I'm like, I wish that we talked politics. But
yeah, that's what I had as a kid. I mean, I knew everything going on from the leftist perspective. Like,
oh, you had leftist parents?
Incredibly. And
oh, wow.
Well, they're what you'd call progressive Catholics.
Yeah.
They were Reformed Catholics that were still Catholic, and fell in with a group of Oregon communists, so to speak. And
wow.
Kind of, I mean, they would, by anyone's definition, they would be, but it more socialist. But I did find it very, very funny when a woman who I grew up with, her son is one of my best friends, passed away about 3 years ago. She basically had blood cancer and basically untreatable, and underwent basically assisted suicide. And when you get it, you basically kind of get a calming sedative that makes you very lucid. And she kind of just talked and talked and talked. And I wasn't there, but a family friend of ours was there, and her son was there, and all this stuff. But one of the things she said in her monologue was, "Why do we waste so much time on communism?" Like, that made me laugh so hard when I heard that, because it was, it was this thing of fighting for the working class and thing, and that's really what you're doing. But it was in the end, it's there. There are other things. Is my point. But I just love that she just tossed that off, because that summed up such a huge part of my chat.
Do you feel hopeful about being able to prevail against the overfunded oligarchic, system of?
Well, look, in the extreme, I firmly believe those guys are building rockets to try to get off the planet before the planet dies.
I do
I
too.
firmly believe if they launch those rockets, we will shoot those rockets out of the sky. Whoever is helping those guys get on rockets will sabotage the rockets. The thing is, we all need each other. And that's the extreme insane thing. Second, I think we have to come up with some way to get the money to everyone rather than 7 guys.
Yeah.
Or there will be mass rioting, and those guys will not be safe. Because there's really nothing you can do. Hide in your tower all day, you're stuck.
Yeah.
We don't have the technology. There's no colony built on Mars. They're racing to do it. It's not going to happen. So I do think it's almost going to be like in the movies, and I really hope we don't get there. I hope we have a lot more people that kind of step up, and there's the amount of people that are stepping up to run that are crazy, they're in the news. But the people that are not in the news, because that's not news. Yeah. When someone's just trying to help and they're just trying, that's not a grabber. That will not,
if somebody's like, this might help, they're like,
there's some hope. Yeah, exactly. That's boring. Hope is boring. I mean, I firmly believe. I don't know if you saw Don't Look Up. I didn't hate it. I actually thought it was really funny and really, really great in parts. Definitely a flawed movie. But I think the reason people flipped out so hard is because they were the problem. They really didn't want to look up. Like, they're like, look, I know it's going on, but why do you have... It's like, Jesus, but no... Would you flip out about Dr. Strangelove? Like, I was thinking about this when I was... yesterday, I was like, I grew up during the constant threat of nuclear war. Constant. Every single day, we didn't know. Yeah. And it was, you had to put in the back of your mind for your life, for your consciousness. And I think we're doing the same thing now. So in the end, I really don't think there's any choice but hope. Really, it's scary, but at the same time, just like we all love our children, we're going to reach a point where capitalism is just going to hit a wall. It can't not. I think someone's going to go, hey, wait, who owns all these empty buildings? And it's going to be like,
Well, and also it's like, I think the pandemic really did. Well, first of all, hope. There's a lot about hope in the book and my struggle to have it. I just want to say that for people. And magic around it. A card that said first in hope, and I was like, I don't believe in hope. I'm a yogi. I believe in the now. Hope is about the future. And then I just carried this card around because somebody had given it to me during this revolutionary time, and then we ended up doing Uncab at a club called First and Hope on the corner of First and Hope Street. Amazing. Like, it was crazy. Just these, I love those things. But, going to the end of Capitol, I mean, you go around and, you see these empty storefronts right now. I mean, you drive where you haven't been maybe for 6 months and you're like, oh, wow. Oh, gone, empty. What's there? Nope, not there. And that's sort of like a diminishment of consumerism, and I think the shift out of a consumerist society is really interesting. People have lost the lust of, stuffness because I don't know, we're not there right now. And so I think it's interesting what's going to go into those stores. Sometimes I think, oh, all those places could become like, community centers or,
Sure.
art places,
Sure.
or what's going to happen to them? I mean, if literally nobody wants to buy stuff, nobody wants to go into these stores to buy stuff.
Right.
And maybe it's because people are just going onto Amazon. I mean, I don't not
Yeah.
order from Amazon. I don't not do it.
Mhm.
If I need a little thing, and I will order it. And I hope your listeners will stay listening.
No, yeah, listen, I have every manner of listener, and I appreciate them all. I'm glad I have, I'm glad I have conservative listeners, possible right wing listeners. I don't have a problem with that. I miss the exchange of ideas. I
Yes.
miss a time where, I used to have when I lived in Chicago, I used to hang out and drink with people who diametrically were opposed to everything I kind of stood for on a normal human level.
Hmm.
I didn't hang out with racists or homophobes or anything banana like that.
Right.
They were humanists like myself,
Hmm.
but maybe they were a little bit more dogmatic religiously. And, that was the hill they'd die on. And I was like, okay, I appreciate that because that is your diehard belief. Let's talk. I can
I,
still be cool with you.
I have a
I
friend
miss
who
that
grew up
for a
as a
second. I am
Republican.
not against you. We are
Yeah.
all together here. Like
Yeah.
I maintain as much as I get mad at quote unquote the other side, and I hate calling it that. I really think there are people who have set us at each other's throats to make money,
A
and
hundred
it's
percent.
just that's what I mean about capitalism. Got to hit a wall.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like you're getting in the way of love. I'm sorry to say it
Yeah.
that strong, but it's just it's one of those things where I'm just like I just don't know what to do. But in the
Yeah.
end, I can do this podcast, but also I can be funny. I can take some steam out of people's lives when I'm
Well, you can
funny or
reach out to
whatever.
people who don't like 100% agree with you and not cut everyone out of your life.
Yeah,
That isn't, and it's hard. Sometimes can be hard to hold on to those relationships. But in
yeah.
this time, I mean, I've had to navigate with one particular friend what we
Hmm.
can talk about, what we can't talk about, and I won't. Neither of us want to end the friendship. So we've
Sure,
really,
great.
we've just, and that's your responsibility as a human
Yes.
being. But as you say, there are certain bottom lines, obviously
Yeah, and
racism and homophobia, or,
exactly.
look, there are people who just hate women. I'll just run up
Right.
against somebody who's just like,
Yeah.
obviously I hate you, you're a woman. And I'll,
Hmm.
like, okay,
Or and
well,
you're not. It's often like they don't see it as hating women, though it really is. Where
yeah,
they're basically saying you're not doing what a woman should do.
yeah.
It's like according to who, Kevin? Like would you drop it, please? Is this you're a man? What would you? I mean, the amount of guys online that were just like, I would never have an abortion. Like, how would you cross that bridge,
You
sir?
know what? I once wrote of the beginning of a story that was called The Abortion Trial of Mr. John Mooney. And I stopped because I just couldn't bear the idea of I would spend 2 years on this project. But the idea was that abortion was so illegal that now no one could abort anything, like, because the idea of abortion had to be upheld everywhere.
Of
So
course.
men were not allowed to cut their beards anymore.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he was an architect, and he had stopped a project for whatever reason I hadn't yet discovered, and now he was on trial for aborting
Right.
this project.
It's funny. It's hilarious. The term,
Just the term, like,
term.
nothing could be stopped.
Yeah,
So
which it just means stop. That's
yeah,
all it is.
yeah,
Yeah,
nothing could be.
a stopping
Yeah,
is all
yeah,
abortion means. Yeah,
yeah. I
100%.
mean, just men.
Hmm. Well, yeah.
What did you go to remember we had the Women's March at the very
Yep.
beginning of Trump? That
Hmm.
was such an incredible
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of crowds, and I barely ever go to a march, but then some are undeniable and you just have to go.
Yeah.
And it was just so powerful to be there that day. It was very hopeful.
Yeah, I was in San Francisco for Sketchfest, and
Mm.
I did the march during the day, and then went back and did shows at night, and it was amazing because we all got caught in the rain, and we were all still going, and like I went until I was like, all right, if I walk now, I can
Uh-huh.
get to my hotel in time to take a shower and get to my show.
Oh,
And
okay.
that feeling of I don't get to do it, and I haven't done it in Christ almost 2 years now. But I used to, when I could find an organization that would find a thing for me, I would do volunteer work during the
Mhm.
day to because of course I have that built-in.
Oh, when
calendar.
you're on the road.
Yes,
You would.
exactly.
Oh, that's such
So,
a. Oh, wow, Matt.
I mean,
That's.
as the old comedian joke goes, I work an hour a day.
Yeah.
So, it's that thing, and I get it. You always feel like I'm getting away with it. So it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
nice to have some reason to anyway. But like,
Well, also you meet people in the town and you're
oh
like
yeah,
interactive
get the
and
lay of the land, find out
yeah.
good places to get coffee or eat. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the best. It's the best. You meet the best people. But yeah, that was not that I was like, oh, I'm giving, but it's just like, oh, I'm showing my support. It's like showing
Yeah.
up is everything.
Yeah. Well, and also, you're in the fabric.
Mm-hmm. That's
You're
it.
in the fabric of it. Tantrika, everybody thinks of tantra as like the sex yoga, but
Mhm.
it's actually tantra means fabric, and it's really the warp and the
Huh.
weave of life. That's literally what it means. How life is woven together into a fabric.
Oh wow.
And the sexual part of it is just a little piece of what that is. And having grown up in the schmata business, that I was like, obviously I've been attracted. Once I found that out, I was like, that's funny that
Yeah.
here I am in this, yoga form that is that
Oh, that's
tantrika.
great.
Yeah. So I mean, when you do something, and it's just a nice way to think about life too, because as we do. I mean, one thing that might help to almost every question is to are you isolated and alienated? That's where a lot of our problems come from. You were saying this before, how is it not a council of advisors? It's all about
Right.
that. So,
Yeah.
when you find yourself interwoven into society and connected, and connection is a word that is so exciting. I just love, I mean, that's the greatest part of comedy is,
Yeah.
obviously, you're standing
That's
on
right.
stage and you're just this electric connection.
I mean,
And,
that's the perfect jump off for our calls. You just
oh,
nailed it.
good.
Yeah.
Ah,
So I will just to set you up. We always have exactly three,
okay.
and I don't listen to them.
Great.
I don't know how many we got. Renee picks, the winners
Okay.
and just plays them. So it's just right off the cuff. The only rule is we don't Google.
Okay.
If someone's like, it's because it's just
It's cheating. They could have
and
Googled.
to-
They can Google. They don't need us for that.
They can do that. It's just like when we post a show and you write Un-Cabaret so and so 7:30 and the person writes, "What time is it?"
Yeah.
Like, are you just trying to have a conversation? What is this? So, if you're ready, we'll roll the first call.
I'm always ready.
Okay, let's do it.
Hey, Fat Donger, this is Lauren from Southern Maryland. I have taken your advice and I have decided to seek professional help with a therapist. I met with her for the first time this week. I really like her. So this question might be a little bit late, but what do you and your guest look for in a therapist? And what kind of questions should I ask my therapist to help with some personal issues of feeling inadequate? We'll say that. Thanks for the advice in advance. Bye.
Well, caller, congratulations. First off, huge step. That's really awesome that you're doing that. Beth, I'll let you take first crack.
All right. That's a bit, those are, yeah, again, also congratulations. I mean, to even find a therapist. There were two questions. How do you find a therapist? And what about,
Oh, what do you
look for in a therapist?
look for? Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's found one. Yeah.
It's so hard. I mean, it's sort of like falling in love. I mean, it's got to be somebody you feel you trust. I think there has to be an initial feeling of trust. I have done badly looking for someone, though I have worked with certain people. Right now, my therapist, it was my high school English teacher.
Wow.
So she actually knows, like, she'll say, well, do you remember this? And like about like when I was 16.
Oh my
So
God.
like in some ways it's the greatest thing. In some ways we've become friends. I don't know. It's just a weird, beautiful, special thing. I have gone, I would say more what you don't look, there are more red flags. I could say could give you red flags. When I was looking for somebody, I remember there was this one woman who was she immediately was putting up like boundary. Oh, you shouldn't let distance be a factor in who you look for. It's like LA. It's like that's gonna end up being 3 hours a week.
Yeah.
So I went anyway, and then the parking was hard, and then I walked in, and she was like, "Can you take off your shoes?" And I was like, "That's making me feel very vulnerable." And it was in her house, and I didn't want to see her kitchen. So finally, we're in her room and in the therapy room, and there's so much stuff on her desk. It was so distracting. I was like, "You're too messy to be my therapist." No. And then I was telling the story, and I think she was in show business. She was Jewish, and she was doing shows, and she had to tell me about it.
Oh God.
And how much she made or didn't make. And then she took off her shoes, and first she was wearing yoga clothes, completely inappropriate. I mean, and then took off her shoes, and she put her naked feet, and she was an older woman, which I like in a therapist. I somehow feel like, oh, good, they might know something. It's an older person. And then she put her like older naked feet, like literally 2 feet from me, like on a foot thing. And at the end, I said, she said, "Well, what time do you want to come? Let's set up another appointment." I was like, eh. And she was like, well, why not? I was like, well, I don't think this is going to work. And also she kept saying the whole time I was telling her the trauma and the childhood and the this and the that. And she kept saying, well, I don't see what the problem is. So, I mean, everything was so wrong, and little yapping dogs, which I could have lived with. But anyway, she was like, well, what's the problem? I said, it's all a problem. It's all a problem.
Yes.
Everything. I was like, the desk, the thing, you don't think it's a problem. The feet, my shoes. She said, well, I shouldn't have asked you to take off your boots. I was like, you know what? That's just like, that's so the tip of, anyway. So somebody, like so many red flags, but I think you should really look for somebody, I've worked with other people, and somebody you can trust, somebody who you want to talk to. There's a thing about a person. I mean, I know because I have one of those faces. People want to tell me stories. And when you look at this person, you should feel like you want to talk to them. The second part of the question is, how do you frame this question of feelings of inadequacy? You just did a perfect job. You don't have to have the perfect question. You really can just go in there and just say, like, I have feelings around this issue. I don't even know how to ask this question, because it's possible that your inability to frame the question is more the problem than the inadequacy. Or, because then your therapist can say, why don't you understand how to frame the question? Let's look at that. What is your ability to articulate questions? Do you feel you have to know everything? And that's connected to the inadequacy. So really somebody you can be honest with, and then just actually try to be honest with them.
Yeah, I mean, you absolutely nailed it, and I love that your description of that gave me pain, because I was like, I have that thing where if I just my therapist's office, I haven't been there in a long time. We Zoom,
right,
but it's just uncluttered. He has a couple, of course. When I have all the spines of all the books memorized, but there aren't a ton,
right.
But it's orderly, because you're trying to get your shit in order. And if this person, I'm not judging messy people, but I don't want to see it. Not if I'm paying you.
Yes.
And you're laying around with your bare feet up on stuff. Like, no. I love the television version of a therapist where everything is clean line. Like, I've never seen an office that those people must be $1,000 an hour, but I'm like, oh my God, am I in Tibet? This is incredible, but like that is calming. And
the one picture that's sort of vague that you can like stare at. It's just got to be a vague picture that
it doesn't stir things in your mind.
No, there's not like a mother and daughter or a cat.
And there are different styles, but her saying, I don't see the problem, I would either, there's this famous therapist I've heard about. I think actually Mark Maron had him on because so many people
Oh.
were clients of this guy.
Uh-huh.
And I remember Hank Azaria was talking to him and was like, he was going on and on about his pain. And the guy was like, okay, well, let me stop it right there. I think you're being a giant fucking baby, first off, and that I would prefer, where it's like, someone just be like, quit being a fucking baby. And you're like, oh, I am,
Yeah.
okay. Rather than, I don't think that's a problem. It's just like, I'm telling you it is, and maybe the problem is I'm a fucking baby. Like that's, there's a problem there.
Oh, for sure. You need those people in your life. I mean,
and like that is not my therapist, but my therapist will call me on my shit.
Oh, me too. Yeah, you need somebody who's going to call you on stuff. And by the way, your friends should be those people too. I mean,
that's right.
The friend who can say, honey, yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I started doing comedy in Chicago. I got it all the time. We all did. But I went to a therapist who was great to talk to, but really didn't guide me at all. And after about 5 sessions, I was like, I think this is it. And she was like, okay, and was cool with it. And
some people don't. I mean, that's a really good thing for this caller to also have determined, like, do you really want to, I mean, sometimes you really just need to articulate what it is that's inside you. Right. And there were times I saw somebody who was supposed to be doing, I always call it EMT. It's not EMT, EMDF, or the thing where you get the pulses and it's supposed to reframe. Yes. It's the like post, it's PTSD, anti-PTSD stuff. Okay. And I was supposed to be doing that with her, and it was really, but I kept talking because I still really needed to tell the story, and we very rarely got to this thing. She ended up not being great, but that's another thing. You're not marrying this person. You may have more than one therapist, different. You went to this one for 5 sessions. It can be something that you go in and out of that different people are the same way you have more than one friend. I mean, you don't have one friend, which I think because my parents met in junior high school and were together forever, and it was extremely locked in. And I grew up with, you get a thing and that's the thing, and you have a friend and, you have a partner, and it just to be expansive and say, okay, this is my therapist now, and see how far it goes. And if you feel it's a dead end, move on.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And if they do react badly, that's a bad sign. You made a good choice.
Oh, I read a really good book if you're starting therapy. This also, maybe you should talk to someone. Is written by, I'm forgetting her name, but it's a huge book. They've sold, she sold 1 million copies, and she was a student of mine. So I was very proud of her. But it's a great book. She's a therapist, and she's in therapy, and she talks about clients. And really, it's a great read. It's a memoir, but like a page turner. And I think if you're starting therapy, it would be a great book to read, because you sort of are inside therapy and you see how it goes for different people. And I think it would be very liberating to be inside the room in that way. And there's also, some reality shows. There's a couples counseling one now on Showtime, I think. And
the Showtime one I loved.
Yeah,
I didn't think
me too.
I would. My wife was like, let's just watch this. I was like, ugh. And then I got addicted. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, that's maybe a great thing for the caller, so she doesn't feel so sort of on her own and sort of, what is it? I don't even know what it is. Mm-hmm. It familiarizes you and maybe gives you some ideas about how a session can go, that you're not having to invent it and be sort of scared of the process.
Yeah. And to second what Beth said about the insecurity thing, or inadequacy thing, excuse me. Yes, that's exactly how you say it. Just how you said it to us.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it. It's their job to deal with it. You don't have to fancy it up or find a good way. That's the good way. So hope that helps.
Okay.
All right, let's roll the next call.
Hey, Matt. This is Constance. I called you a couple weeks ago about peanut butter cookie recipe. And I listened to the episode with my friend, and we laughed so hard and had so much fun listening to it together. And we love Lisa Tozzi,
awesome,
who was 100% correct in her surmise that this is the best thing that lady makes. It is her best recipe. She doesn't have any confidence in what she makes. And so whenever they get together, they make the peanut butter. She makes the peanut butter cookies. Everybody says how good they are, and they ask for the recipe. And so this friend group, the update is this friend group has a lot of very close friends from a long time. And one of the ladies, for a while now, has been looking up peanut butter cookie recipes and baking them.
Whoa.
And getting her wife to taste test them to see if they're the same as the ones the peanut butter cookie lady brings. And they're never the same.
Holy shit.
And my friend thought she had, like, cracked the code with crushed pineapple, and that the peanut butter cookie lady was like, nope, that's not it. So, and just to, like, give some perspective, so my friend Kara is in Michigan. I'm in Pittsburgh. And, like, the Kandinskis that they're hanging on the wall are, like, buffalo chicken dip and artichoke and feta dip from the Kraft website that was originally on, like, the side of the feta container. So it's not fancy stuff, but it's delicious, like party potatoes. So that was
Nice.
what was going on, and thank you, because we laughed our asses off. It was so funny, and you and Lisa were awesome. So thank you very much. Hope all is going well with you. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Thank you for calling. That wasn't a question. It was an update, but I'll fill you in. So very, very necessary. I'm glad that Renee picked that one, because basically this woman was saying, Lisa Tazian, who's the content editor for Rolling Stone magazine. And it's very exciting because we haven't had follow-up calls, and now we've had like 3, which is awesome. So that one basically was this, I love these slices of life one, because I get so many that are just like, you know, how do I get through heartbreak, things like that. It's like heavy, 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 which don't stop calling with those, please. But she basically said she goes to this potluck where everyone just brings crazy food. Mm-hmm. This one woman brings nothing but these incredibly good peanut butter cookies. And everyone's like, hey, how do you make these? And she's like, oh, it's a secret. Like, she lords it over them. So now they're all just like, would you just fucking tell us how you make these cookies? So the one woman, her wife, is like just making all these recipes, and she's tasting it. And she's like, I got it. Crushed pineapple. No.
It's definitely
and
not
it's like
crushed pineapple.
Lisa's
How
theory
could it
was just that that's her one recipe. She'll never give it up. And it's kind of like, it's twofold. One, maybe she kind of sucks. 2, let her have her recipe. You know?
Oh my God.
So have you had any situations like that where someone, let's say someone can just do one fucking thing?
I think that's me. I think the person that I in that story is the peanut butter lady. I am not deep and rich in culinary skill. I once had my friend Bob Bloomer. He'd be a good guest. He's like a food TV personality and has cookbooks. And he said he was at my place once, and he was like, oh, I can come help you with your kitchen. And he looked around. And he was like, this kitchen is only missing one thing. And I said, what? He said, any will to cook.
Nice. Ambition.
And you know what? So I don't think I can't even remember potlucks now. How are they having potlucks? Jeez.
Yeah, I think with once the wave of Omicron crested a little bit, I had it over the holiday break, and so now, I don't feel invincible, but now that
I'm seeing people, but I think a potluck feels, whenever I'm going to somebody's house and I think about what I should bring, you bring something, you're going to have dinner. It's always us going to someone else's house for dinner.
Of course.
And I'm always like, let's bring an orchid.
How about a cactus?
I'm always like, a plant. What about a shirt? I never think of a food to bring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, food is always tough because it's like, do you bring a plate you'll probably never see again to
Never.
hold,
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
Tupperware you give them? You
Yeah.
know,
And you can't do like something you bought in a store because that's, I don't know. Maybe a fancy dessert. Sometimes I
I
will
think
buy
if
a
you buy
fancy.
something in a store, it should be something like from a supermarket, so at least it's funny. I remember
Oh, that's funny.
in
I
the,
think it's okay to buy a fancy dessert somewhere that is
yeah,
sort of like
that
impossible to create
that's
on
it.
your own. Like
Yeah,
no one will do this.
I went to a party in Chicago when I was in my 20s and an idiot, and I just went to the supermarket and I got some beer, but then I also saw there's a cake shaped like a lamb, and it also happened to be Easter.
Oh
So
my
I just
God.
went to the house and was like, here's a beer, and of course the Lamb of God. Hey guys. And everyone's like, where did you even find this frosted lamb?
Oh my God, that's insane. I once had somebody come to a birthday party with a giant like 24 pack of light bulbs as a present, like had obviously, and
That's amazing.
and I was like, that's actually kind of great.
I love that idea where it's
Yeah.
like, I bought you a brand new screwdriver, like
Yeah.
something they might not have, or
Well,
yeah.
light bulbs like you are gonna even if you have them,
Yeah.
you know. Although now, like it's like the LEDs and they last for 1,000 years, and
Yeah.
you don't. And if they got
That's
you the
true.
wrong light, and light bulbs have gotten actually so complicated, we could easily get a question about that.
True. It's true.
Matt, this
Yeah.
might be a good time for me to point out I actually have a decider coin that I've created.
Oh, that's cool.
That is, every project has to have some merch, and I didn't want to do a T-shirt because who wants to really buy your? You have a nice one on today, but this is a decider coin, and one side says yes, so much so, and it has a sun and infinity sign, and the other side says not so much, keep looking, and has a
Nice.
hand and an eye because partly and it's very thick and
Oh,
has a
cool.
nice weight. But it's funny because in the book Dana Gould says he quotes Billy Wilder, I think, and he says directing is all decision making. That's all it is decisions,
Yeah.
decisions. And really, you could flip a coin because it's just about making a decision. You're going to be right at least 50% of the time.
Yeah.
And
No, I love that because you do come down to this point where sometimes you're just like, both of these, the term a good problem is one I use a lot where it's just like this. There was a time when I never would have had either of these decisions.
Yeah,
Either way
that's
I
so
go,
nice. Yeah.
It's cool. And so that's great to have. That's a really good
Yeah,
tool.
it's nice. It's good. So, but it wouldn't help with the peanut butter cookies, actually.
But that's, it wouldn't, but you could flick it at her or something.
Just
fine.
know what? Just accept. My thing
yeah.
is just like, well, I don't
I
understand.
I think they have, and they're appreciating because we just laughed our asses off.
So funny. But I have one more question. Where
Yeah.
does Kandinsky come in?
Because I think I might have compared like I have a terrible memory, but I'm thinking it was just like she's bringing she thinks this thing is a classic.
Oh, I see.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when they're these are all Kandinsky's.
Yeah, I see.
The buffalo dip. The
I
artichoke.
I just
dip.
love that somehow crushed pineapple pieces was maybe the
That's
solution.
so weird.
I mean, crushed
always
pineapple
something like
pieces
that.
are not going to be the solution, though, to this problem.
No, it's gonna be something you don't want to know. It's like it's fish sauce. Oh, really? Okay, so are you ready for the third and final call?
I am.
All right, let's do it.
Hey, Matt. My name is Colleen, and I am calling in with a little bit of a tricky one. I am a young breast cancer survivor, and I'm now 3.5 years. At times it feels like months, out from diagnosis. And I find that I'm still really struggling with harboring some resentments about how a lot of people in my life, family and friends, chose to deal with my diagnosis and treatment. I'm not someone that isolates when they, are in crisis. I'm someone that reaches out for support and actually asks for it. So I did do that at the time, and was public with my diagnosis. I didn't hide it. So there's quite a few people that just ghosted, or would message me and just say if you at the beginning, like if you want someone to talk to, you can talk to me type thing, which like I get, but active treatment was 1.5 years. So it was like a really long course of treatment. And this was pre-COVID. So you don't even have like COVID to blame for it, for people acting this way. So I just wanted to see what your thoughts were about how to best, like you'll never really move forward or on from it, but just like how to come to terms more with people's reactions, and not being so supportive or helpful. Thanks.
Hey, caller, thanks for calling and for sharing that. And that's absolutely brutal. Just shooting from the hip, I don't have anything to base this on. I've had friends who I've lost. I have friends who have had cancer that weren't that close to me, but I feel like I did offer what support I could that they wanted. Not to be like, I didn't do what your friends did. I'm not saying that here at all. I'm sure there are times that I wasn't there for people that were going through things. That said, I think it's true what they say, or whoever said it. When people show you who they are, believe them. And I think none of that is, it sounds like you're internalizing. It sounds like you're kind of taking this upon yourself. And what should I do? I don't think you have to do anything. I think you just have to remember the people that were there for you and stick with them. And maybe those people that ghosted you, don't feel bad about ghosting them. Or tell them, if they're still in touch with you, hey, you weren't there for me, and I really needed you. And I know it's so hard to say. It's very easy for me to say it. That's why I have this show. But look, bottom line, I'm glad you're doing great. You're 3.5 years past this. And I am not one to talk about, just leave it all behind, because I live in the past more often than I would like to admit. But I would say you just don't, you have to work on not thinking about those people anymore, and not, I don't know, if you want for them to own up to it, then maybe you should reach out, but I wouldn't even bother. I would kind of let it go, because I think you have better things to do for yourself, and you'll be more grateful to yourself if you do. So that's all shooting from the hip. I might be totally wrong. Bottom line, I'm just glad you're still here, and I'm sorry these people who you thought were your friends were not there for you. A lot of what we do is very decorative, especially when it comes to friendship. But one thing I've massively learned, because I really haven't been in touch with a lot of the people who I really should have been in touch with, and thank God a lot of them are still with me, because I learned a friendship takes work. It takes nurturing. And it's not hard work. You just have to put the time in. It's like a job. You have to show up. You have to go, hey, you need anything? Hey, how are you feeling? Hey, I'm here if you want to talk. And sometimes, there's another thing I learned, when someone's talking to me about their problems, it is not up to me to offer solutions. Just to fucking listen. Shut up and listen. And that's what those people should have done for you. And I'm really sorry that happened to you. But I'm glad you're here, and just on to the next. The future is something you have. The past is gone. So let them be them. And now I'll throw it to you, Beth.
Well, that's all great advice, Matt. And, obviously, first of all and foremost, you've come through this very hard thing, and probably, give yourself the space to say, now that you're through this incredibly, difficult period of your life, these feelings are coming up now, because you're past the life and death part of it. And so it's natural. One thing I will say in the book, I thought there would be a chapter on friendship, the decisions about friendship, and nobody wanted to talk about it. It seemed too tender and too hard. I don't think we have the language for it, and I just want the caller to know she's not alone in how difficult this is. This friendship we have not done the work on friendship that we've done on romance and primary love relationships, and that still needs to be done in our culture. So that's one thing. Another thing is, when you have a resentment, important to look at what your part of it is. Did you not ask really enough? Were you not clear? Where are you in it? Like you said, Matt, um, and, maybe what you resent is that you need to let these friends go and you don't want to. We
Yeah.
tend to want to hold on to relationships past. I mean, the end of a friendship is one of the most painful things, and everybody has them. So I think, as you say, moving on, but don't rush past the feeling, acknowledge it and give it a chance. Like, give it one last shot, and also just maybe forgive these friends. I mean, it is really hard. I mean, she sounds young, she doesn't
Yeah.
sound like an older person. And many of these friends, this might help. This might,
Yeah.
this might actually help. Many of these friends have not looked at their own life and death issues. They haven't done that work. And for
Right.
them to show up for you meant that they had to do work that they haven't done, especially breast cancer. Women are so afraid of breast cancer. People are, irrationally afraid of being near it and catching it, and they don't
course.
want to think about it. And that, I think, would be maybe give you a small piece of compassion to help you forgive it, knowing that they haven't done this work themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, to your point, the threat of mortality, if it's a distinct possibility in friends or loved ones, threatens us
Yeah.
because we realize we also have an end, and it's one of those things that sounds obvious, but you never really think it out loud. It's a scary thing. So I loved your point about youth too, where I remember when I not to say started losing friends, but there is an age where that happens.
Yeah.
And, for me, it's been the last 10 years, and it's horrifying. We're like, wait a minute, they're just gone. And the fear of that in a young mind is mortifying. It's just, it's brutal. So yeah, that's a solid point.
Yeah, they were going through their own thing, and your thing was harder, and your thing, there is in grief that thing where it's like you're supposed to grieve out. There's a
Yeah.
primary griever, and you should grieve out. Your friends really should have. I mean, I hate to use should have, but it is a should have. When somebody's sick, you put aside your feelings, and
Right.
you go forward into, and in the best of all possible worlds, your friends would have. But it is not the best of all possible worlds ever. And people will disappoint. And, in some ways, in order to move gracefully through the world, you have to be willing to be disappointed in people sometimes. And part of the thing is owning your own part is sort of understanding your own fallibility. Your friends weren't perfect in this. Are they in general, good friends? That's an important point to make. Or did this highlight the really not great friendship, or
Right.
was this an isolated incident where they weren't able to step up as you would have wished, and it was disappointing? Or did it show that the whole friendship was faulty? That's a big question that you should look at, and that
Yeah.
will really help you get past it.
That's true, and you'll learn that as you get older. You will sum people up for whether they're there for you or not, and if your fabrics meet, so
Yeah.
to speak, Beth. So
Yeah. Yes. I love that. And also, there's sometimes we start to look for things from friends that really we should be looking for from, therapists and other support people. I mean, there's only so much, that friends can do. Sometimes they're going through their own, maybe your friend was going through a breakup and just didn't have it in her to, show up for your cancer the way you would have wished. This is because life is, as they say in meditation, perfectly imperfect.
that's right. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Caller, hope that helps. Beth, we went a little long. Hope that's okay.
Oh, it was fine. I mean, I hope that, the idea that we might be helping people is very energizing.
It's fun, and we don't have a massive following, but it's decent, and I really appreciate the people who have written in and who we're getting these, callbacks and stuff
Yep.
and follow-ups. So like, that's awesome. And I'm glad you could take the time to be on.
It was my pleasure. And sometime, let me know when you're around to do Uncab. We'd love to
100%.
have-
Would
yeah.
love to. Would love to.
Love to
Yeah.
have you back.
And give us the book and where they can get it.
Okay.
So,
The book is an original audiobook called So You Need to Decide, and it's available everywhere that audiobooks are available. You can use your Audible credit on it, and you can also gift it very easily through Audible. You, if you're really pinching pennies, can get it probably through your very own library. It's everywhere, and if you love it, please do rate and review it on Amazon.
fantastic. Well, Beth, thank you so much for coming on. This was a joy.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, that was a great one. If you need any advice of any kind or have a problem you just want to talk about, just let it out. Leave us a message at 323-763-0228. Again, 323-763-0228. And thanks.
This Might Help with Matt Braunger was created and hosted by me, Matt Braunger. Produced by Outer Circle Media. Executive producers Matt Kleinschmidt and Robert Kelly for the Laugh Button Podcasts.